Good morning, everyone. I'm Chamberlain Uso. Welcome along to Sunrise Daily today.
It's a beautiful Thursday morning from here in Lagos. I'm Kairo Kikelu.
And hope it's beautiful for you as well. Welcome. I'm Ayo Makine.
Yeah, it was also beautiful yesterday.
Oh, absolutely.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
And you say something?
I'm wondering,
What?
so it was March 3 yesterday.
And then it was March the 2nd before that.
Yeah.
Yes, that was Pastor Adeboye's birthday. I remember that very vividly. Yes.
Birthday.
Oh, I see.
Now you know where we're going. Birthday. Someone's birthday. Anyway, yes, indeed. Let's take you through some of the dailies. And this morning, we've got Mr. Abimbola Toki, the editor of Business World. Good morning. Good to see you again today.
Yeah, nice to be here. Good morning.
Okay, so let's delve into this, starting with Vanguard newspaper today and see what they lead with. And you know the thing with headlines, when you see some headlines, you think, wait a minute, I thought I've seen this kind of headline sometime before, but look at that. That's what I'm talking about. Shoot anyone with AK-47 in the bushes, Buhari. No commitment to end insurgency, Northeast governors lament. Ask FG to seek external help, engage mercenaries. Propose local joint security outfits. Say terrorists subject Maiduguri to total darkness for 7 weeks. We want state police, Bauchi governor. Extend no-fly zone to Benue, Taraba, Borno, ACF. Says choppers also drop arms for bandit insurgents in these states. Wow, all of this right there. Say now we know the former president Obasanjo had a similar kind of directive to the OPC at that time. Said, look, shoot inside. But now, haven't heard the president say some time ago that it was going to be about the last time that any of this kind of things happen. And with this directive, how do you see this playing out?
Well, the way it's actually, it's not funny actually. That we got to this point is very, very disappointing. And this statement is supposed to have even come earlier than now. And for some of us, some of these statements, we no longer take it very, very, very seriously. We only hope that this one will have the kind of effect that they're supposed to have, because most Nigerians are no longer surprised that herdsmen, Fulanis, banditry and criminality, you know, they don't actually result into criminal charges. And that is why we are here. This thing is supposed to have been nipped in the bud in its embryonic stage, but it has gone out of hand now, and we can only hope that this directive has the kind of effect we all expect it to have. Because in a situation where herdsmen and Fulani, they have gone away with a lot of criminalities, and even in the sight of overwhelming evidences like videos and all that, you know. So we can only hope that this current president directive takes effect, and we wait for days and weeks to see how this will pan out.
Well, speaking about some of those issues you highlighted, at the bottom strip here we see, we won't provide land for ranching, Governor Makinde. So some other states appear to be of this same perspective or stance, but wow, I guess the controversy never ends.
It never ends. Well, governors are the owners of the land in their respective states, and they can decide what to do with it. But I think ranching is a global phenomenon. It's something that should be given a pride of place in the country. If we say that herders should not roam about our bushes again, where should they settle? So ranching is the way to go, and I think every governor should encourage it in their respective states.
So if they are to encourage it, how should they do that? Is it state funds? Because it's a private business.
No, it can never be state fund. If anybody wants ranching, you should procure the land or the landed property and put on the necessary infrastructure. It's purely a business thing. So if anybody wants land, should get the land and do every other investment that is necessary.
But isn't it interesting that this is coming from the governor of Oyo State, seeing that there's a portion of land in Oyo State called Fashola, where historically it was a place for all kinds of livestock. So for this to be coming from the governor now, and it was a huge success at the time. I recall listening to an engineer, a professor of agricultural engineering, talking about it. So for him to be saying this now, one would wonder, what's the background?
No, maybe we should wait for further probe on this matter, because ranching to me is the way to go, especially when we see where we are coming from. For governor to have said this, maybe by tomorrow now, maybe the governor can say it's quoted out of context. So we should wait for this and see how this comes out.
Some of these days, even when you have it on tape, and you hear I was quoted out of context, and you feel, what other context is there? Because we don't listen to what they're not saying. We only quote what they say.
Let's wait and see if the media will probe further, and maybe the governor can make follow-up comments on what he said. Yeah.
Okay, I'll just mention these other ones and then move on. Alleged religious profiling of military FG not keen about investigating Sheikh Gumi, that's from Cannes. And then NECO seizes result of 30,000 Niger students over 1 billion naira debt. You can have a quick look on the back page. It's Vanguard Sports there. 2021 AFCON qualifier. NFF confirms date, venue for Nigeria, Lesotho clash. Lagos ready for Eagles. So, wow, what a return is going to be there. Well, you can also take a look at your Mr. and Mrs. Okay, let me not skip that. Mr., they're just at the table having a little chit-chat, and Mr. says to Mrs., I like your friend's philosophy, and I think you should emulate her. She said, good things come to those who wait. Expect Mrs. not to let that pass, and Mrs. says, what do you expect from a waiter? She waits for tips. So, that's Vanguard this morning.
Serious ouch.
Okay, so on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune, I did some counting. There are 11 stories there, but 9 of those 11 stories are security related, just to show you how much of a big deal security is today in the country. And the lead story, shoot anyone with AK-47, Buhari directs security agents. Aircraft picked gold deposit in Zamfara and transported to Dubai, he says. So maybe that gives an understanding into the no-fly zone order that was given. And just right on top of the nameplate, you see, make Benue, Taraba, Borno, no-fly zones, as rumor of helicopters dropping arms for bandits spreads. That's according to the ACF. So maybe we might not have to wait till tomorrow to get some context to Governor Makinde's the statement about the land. So on the Nigerian Tribune, it says no free land for ranching in Oyo, Makinde. So maybe implying that if you want to do that business, you have to pay.
Yeah.
Basically. So, but anyway, there's always tomorrow to get some further clarification to that one. So we'll wait. But right under the big picture, and I'd like you to just touch on this. After 6 days, Northerners return to South for commerce. Food and Cattle Dealers Association takes case to Buhari, lists demands, suffers losses as tomatoes, onions lose monetary value in northern states. We saw those videos making the rounds. Southerners pay more for pepper, beef. Southwest governors agree on measures to ensure food abundance. Pages 4 and 5. So it seems that they will be coming back now from the north. But really, do you think this should have happened in the first place?
Well, let me first say that it's a heartwarming news item that can we call it industrial action now? By the food
agricultural action
in the north. It's heartwarming. But lesson learned. Do you know I was actually alarmed to see that after 2 or 3 days of this strike, tomatoes vanished from the market. And not only tomato, other related and similar agricultural products. And that is a dangerous signal. It's a warning signal to us, especially not only in the South, but every part of the country, that we have not taken agriculture very seriously in this country. I don't know why just 2 days of strike, then you can't see tomatoes and other products to buy in the market. Are we serious as a country? You understand? So there are wasted land everywhere that could be used for agricultural purposes. What are we doing in this country? Anyway, it is a wake-up call to the governors.
Any disruptions of farmers who want to go in and farm, because there are security threats. People say we can't go to farm because of certain things going on. So maybe, who knows, now that there's a shoot at sight order with anyone with AK-47, who knows? Is this expected to have impact on farmers who perhaps will say, look, before now I couldn't go to the farm, but now I should be able to go to the farm?
Well, we have to wait and see, because when we talk about security, it's not only the farmers, it affects all the stratas of the economy, it affects everybody. So security, of course, it has been the #1 spender from the federal government, but we are still yet to see the impact. We can only hope that the new service chiefs, they are already here, although military tactics seem to have had low impact on the overall security challenges that we have in the country. But we can still, as stakeholders, we can only hope and press for more actions from the federal government to stem the tide of insurgencies across the country.
Well, let me just take this last one from the federal government, and I'll probably put you on the spot here, Mr. Toki. 2.3 million Nigerians registered for COVID-19 vaccination in 24 hours. I was going to ask if you're one of those 2.3 million, but it's on page 29 of the Nigerian Tribune.
I'm not one of them.
Is that on the spot?
I'm not one of them.
Interesting, but I mean, just to show how much people are gunning for this, so we have those vaccines, and well, there you see, 2.3 million Nigerians already, so I wonder how many will have registered now. But that's the Nigerian Tribune for you today.
Some would also say it's one thing to register, it's another thing to make yourself available to collect the vaccine. Forgive my position this morning. Nigerian News Direct has this one, and of course also leading with a story about security or a lack of it. Zamfara banditry. Buhari orders security agents to shoot civilians with AK-47 rifles. Alleges arms for gold exchange in Zamfara. That story is on page 2. We've spoken about this already. Northern food dealers agree to lift ban on supply to South. You know, when you talked about this earlier, Mr. Toki, the question that came to my mind was, clearly, we're not as self-sufficient as regions as we thought we were. We should be seeing more Nigerianness than regional interests. That's the kind of lesson that is brought out to me. How do you think we can achieve that?
Honestly, these are part of the things that make me laugh when I hear of agitations of we want to go our separate ways and all of that. You know, there's none of the regions in Nigeria that is self-sufficient in terms of almost everything. We have had leaders who have wasted our time, who have just come to show off in governance, not actually giving governance a pride of place. You know, these are the consequences that we are all facing today. You can recall years back, Nigeria and India were on the same level. Look at where India is today. As a matter of fact, the vaccine that we took delivery of days ago came from India. So India has gone far above us. You know, we keep saying we want investment. Next 10 years, we still want investment. India is no longer craving for investment. People want to go there on their own volition. So where are we in this country? I mean, it calls for sober reflection, actually, and it's quite unfortunate.
Well, just one more on this banner front page of the Nigerian News Direct. Food security, CBN drives release of 50,000 metric tons of maize to poultry producers extends intervention loan repayment till 2022. Well, the poetry there, again, takes my mind to the livestock value chain, which the federal government values as something in the region of 30 trillion naira. We seem to be seeing it more from the security angle than from the economic. And that's your field. Is that a little worrisome or not?
The misintervention, when we are talking
I'm talking about the livestock value chain in its entirety. We seem to be paying a lot more attention to the security angle of it, or a lack of the security angle of it, as opposed to the economic value, which will create a lot of jobs and all of that.
Well, you know, security will dovetail into several other things, but that is the basis. If there's no security, nothing survives. No matter what you are into, agriculture or any other business, if you are not secured, if you are not sure of going to your place of work in the morning and come back safely in the evening, then we are not yet there. So security is the basis of all of these things that we are talking about.
Well, if you take a look at The Guardian next, buckle up on food production. Experts warn South governors. If tiny Israel could feed self, why not Southeast? Perhaps the entire South. So do you see Southern governors perhaps having some sort of agricultural mapping of some of these things and say, okay, look, this calls for introspection to see what do we do? Because this is not the first time a similar thing is happening. I do remember some years ago when Fashola was governor, how they said Lagos had acquired land in some other southern states for some agricultural production as well. And I think they maintained it moving forward. But how do you see this playing out in terms of introspection here?
Honestly, you know, this phenomenon is a warning signal that our governors should wake up from their snoring. Because they are not only sleeping, they are snoring. You know, and it's quite unfortunate if at this age Nigeria is not yet cannot produce what it will eat. Then what are we talking about? You know, it's no longer governance is no longer about wearing babariga, delivering lectures and papers everywhere. It's about sitting down and plan. You know, food security and food sufficiency is key in any part of the world. And this has actually exposed the southern governors. If after 2 days, you know, you can't see some agricultural items in the market again. So what are we talking about? And when you travel across region, you see lands, you know, that are just wasting away. I think it calls for proactive measures for the governors to actually sit down and plan to ensure that this kind of embarrassment does not come up again, because it's actually an embarrassment that just 2 days of this problem, then everywhere is in disarray.
But it's a two-way street too. If they didn't supply, who do they sell to? So they don't make money as well.
Yes, they don't make money as well. But you know, if we supply, all the regions are self-sufficient. I mean, the price will come down. You understand what I'm saying? It will be more massive. If all the regions can take care of themselves, it will have direct impact on the prices of these products. Okay, because I learned that a truck that used to cost about 700,000 naira before the strike is now sold within the north at about 70,000 naira. You can see. So ordinarily, the price should be 70,000 naira. So why is it 700,000 naira? It's because we are not self-sufficient. If all the regions are self-sufficient, the prices will come down and everybody will be the better for it. I beg, it's just quite worrisome. It's worrisome.
Quite an interesting insight there. But if you take a look at the front page of the Daily Trust, what you see might be heart-wrenching. You see 101 soldiers abscond after Marte Dikwa attacks. Army freezes accounts, launches manhunt. The radicalized Boko Haram fighters pick up arms again, that's according to Governor Zulum. Northeast Governor's Mall Regional Security Outfit. Yet again, security leads. But when you see this 101 soldiers absconding after the Marte Dikwa attack, so forget, Marte was retaken after that order given by the army chief. But really, how does this hit you? Well, we already say we don't have enough manpower, but when you see 101 soldiers absconding, really, we saw this coming, didn't we?
Look, more we abscond.
Whoa.
We have just seen the beginning of it. You know.
Why do you say so?
Well, there will be reasons for them to have run away. They are trained to war, you know. But in this case, with what weapons? When they see what they are faced with, the superior weapons they are faced with, you know, so many of them have even been killed, and many have gone unreported. You understand? We are just paying lip service to some of these things. We are not yet serious. These people that abscond, if you get them to tell their stories, you will weep for this country. You know, the kind of equipment they go to war with, can it even face those people they are facing on the war zones? When you are carrying well, I don't want to use some words here, you know. When you are not well equipped, even those who are fighting, they are more equipped than you. Why will you not run away? They have their life, for instance. So many lives have lost in the war zone. So many families have been thrown into sorrow because they have lost their loved ones, you know. So these are the fundamental issues in this case. We need to address this issue frontally. Government need to be very serious. Equip the soldiers much more than what we are seeing at the moment, and they will be able to fight this war. They will be able to combat it and get result. But with what we have on ground now, I doubt if these current service chiefs can still survive this scourge.
Well, let's look the front page of Blueprint newspaper this morning, see what is right there. If you check the front page, what do you see? De-radicalized fighters spying on communities and rejoin group.
Wow.
You know, it's been a little worrisome, tricky actually, because on the one hand we hear repentant bandits, de-radicalized, insurgents, reintegrated into society, found to
This
go
is part
back.
of what Senator Olindema had always cautioned against.
You know,
and now Borno State Governor, Northeast governors are saying, some of them saying the same thing.
And, you know, that move has, first of all, what do you make of this? It would seem like, I don't even know. First of all, what do you make of it?
This thing has gone into their blood. Look, these people have made several billions of naira from this trade. And you want them to come back to town?
Trade?
What is it? Have you not seen videos where monies exchange hands? Big trade, you know? So, I mean, we are just a joke in this country. You want these people to come back to town when they have seen how easy it is to kidnap one or two people. Look, they go with trucks to kidnap 300 plus pupils.
There you go. You know, but you know, when they talk about,
it's a huge joke.
when we hear them talk about state police in that Northeast governors meeting, and you think, look, the North has a significant representation in the National Assembly. So if they feel strongly about these things, alongside some of the Southern counterparts, why can't they go to the National Assembly and say, okay, gentlemen, this is what we need to do. Let's come with this law about state police.
You know, critical issues in Nigeria has its own political, always will have its own political undertone to it. You know, the political will to do some of these things, they are not even there. Look at it. I don't know why we should be against state police. For instance, look at Sunday Igboho's phenomenon recently. Ali, you can see that it has calmed the situation to a greater extent. You understand? These are the people that know the nooks and crannies of their communities. If you bring them on board, they will be able to stem some of these problems that we have. But to say you want to de-radicalize them and come back to the society when they are making cool billions of naira while in the bush.
So there you go.
I'm yet to see the possibility of that.
The fears ahead is we hope that you won't see a lot more people wanting to take laws into their hands and then security degenerates. But we'll keep tabs on this and see how it progresses. But we do thank you for coming on, Mr. Abimbola Toki, editor of Business World.
Thank you very much.
All right, then. We will be back in a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. Yes, indeed. We're talking about the health sector. Yes, you know, we're grappling with, not just us, the world grappling with COVID-19 pandemic and making some, job of work of it because the vaccines have been rolled out. We've received the first tranche here in the country. We've seen some of those who have registered. And then while the world was grappling with that, even Africa was grappling with COVID-19 pandemic, Ebola equally resurfaced, raising huge concerns in different parts of the country. Well, much as we know that the PTF did say a thing or two about it some time ago in terms of what they're doing, but you saw there on the floor of the House, Honorable Onyema Idem did raise some concerns about what he thinks we should be doing. In fact, he joins us this morning. He's the Deputy Chair, House Committee on Communications. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today on the program. Well, it's more like a holistic thing now, the health sector grappling with these outbreaks, keep examining or raising questions about our capacity to handle some of these outbreaks. But if we could just start off from there, and then we'll come to some of the other details. Why did you raise that motion in the first place?
Thank you, Chamberlain. Thank you for having me this morning. The motion that came up yesterday on the floor of the House was necessitated by the current, pandemic that is ravaging the country. And I look at it that it would be nice that we have so many battles, to confront with at the moment. So that's why, the House, in its wisdom yesterday, passed that motion, mandating the federal government to be on the alert concerning the pandemic. Concerning the possible outbreak of Ebola. The whole essence was just for us to be alert, to be proactive, not to wait until when the sickness, meet us in the country before we can now look for, remedy. So the essence was just for us to be very proactive and then get prepared so that the sickness will not, meet us unprepared. That was the essence.
The way we are going about the COVID-19 pandemic, did you get enough confidence? Because there may be those who think that, okay, you may not have been satisfied with what you've seen regarding our handling of this COVID-19 outbreak, because I think the PTF did say, having seen the way we're going about this, we could, I think as Jeff said, they could write a book and how prepared or how they've handled this as a template, meaning that's a pat on the back. Did you see from that same perspective?
Thank you very much. I think at this point, the first thing that the federal government should do, just like it was stated in the motion that was passed yesterday by the House, is for federal government to set up what we call Ebola virus disease incident management committee. That should be the first step by the federal government, because we are talking about being proactive here. Just like I said yesterday, that our current health institution has been overstretched. So as it is, I wouldn't want us to believe that the current facilities that we have can actually handle that. So we need to create more facilities and then get ready for the possible outbreak of this Ebola. And just like I said, since it has already happened in 2 African countries, that is Guinea and also Congo. So there is a possibility that if something is not done urgently about it, people can just, bring into the country. You know that movement of people is something that you cannot control. It is inevitable that people move on a daily basis, especially through our borders, our ports. So that's why we believe that no matter what we have done at the moment, yes, we have tried as a country in terms of the way we are handling the current COVID-19. We have tried as a country, but I'm not sure that the current measures that we have in place can actually handle the Ebola in case it happened. So that's why we now alerted the federal government yesterday that for me, first thing they should do, according to the resolution of the House, is for them to set up Ebola virus disease incident management committee, and from there, most things will be, can be done through that committee. That's what I'm looking at.
So, in other words, you considered how we're handling the current COVID-19 pandemic, and perhaps the PTF's comment that they had activated port health services to be on alert. So, and then you were not satisfied with those measures, hence the need for you to come up with that motion. Is that right?
That's what I'm talking about. I believe that there should be more health workers that should be trained specifically to handle the Ebola, case, in case it happens. The ones that we have at the moment is overstretched. We need to tell ourselves the truth. The one that we have at the moment has been overstretched. So I want to believe that more health workers should be trained and more facilities should be created. That's what I'm looking at. And isolation centers should be created more to support the one that we have at the moment. I know that we have tried in the way that we are managing COVID-19, but can we really say that the current facilities can handle that? I won't say that. So the essence of the motion was to, direct them or to alert them, for them to create more centers in terms of isolation centers, in terms of health workers, trainings, all those things is what we are looking at, so that if there is any possibility, we are not going to be taken unawares.
Well, what you are talking about clearly, Honorable, falls within the purview of the NCDC, which about 2 weeks ago put out a statement that they have already activated a public advisory and that we already have an existing multi-sectoral national emergency viral hemorrhagic diseases working group. So while the NCDC is frontal about the pandemic we're dealing with, it is also not taking its eyes off the ball of this possible outbreak that you are talking about. So beyond the announcement and beyond the advisory, are you saying that we are ill-prepared, given that we already have a template as far as Ebola disease is concerned?
Come again?
Are you saying that we are inadequate? Our preparation for such an outbreak is inadequate, given that there is a working group from the NCDC and there are desks at the airports about this possibility that you are talking about? Are you saying we are ill-prepared despite all of that?
Okay, I think what I'm trying to emphasize here is more facilities should be provided to support the existing one. That's what I'm talking about. The one that we have at the moment has been overstretched. The one we have at the moment has been overstretched. So I'm looking at a situation where more facilities can be created. That's what I'm talking about here. And also, the health workers that we have that are managing the current COVID-19, the number is not adequate. So I'm looking at, federal government through its relevant health agencies for them to create more, to recruit and train more health workers so that in case of any emergency, about Ebola. We are not going to be, met unprepared. So I'm looking at a situation where we can increase the numbers of centers. The current numbers that we have in terms of isolation centers, they are not adequate. So we need more. And also, when you look at our point of the ports of entry into the country, we should beef up more security, And the test we are doing at the moment is for COVID-19. So we need to also make provision for the possible outbreak of Ebola. That's what I'm talking about. Some health workers should be sent for training specifically for Ebola, not for COVID-19. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, well, because some time back we had also taken up the authorities, especially the ministers of health, about this. And of course, they have talked about the fact that people have been trained and all of that. But perhaps the concern here also should be directed at the people who will have to mingle with other people from other parts of Nigeria. What kind of advisory would you be advising that we give to our people, especially concerning this matter? Because ultimately, it's about the people.
Thank you very much. Let me say that the disease we are talking about right now is a bit different from the current one that is ravaging the country. Ebola is different from the COVID-19. And then the measures might not really be exactly the same. So I think risk communication should be on any moment from now. By virtue of that resolution from the House yesterday, Ministry of Communication should intensify efforts in that area by, sensitizing the entire public about the do's and don'ts, what we should do right now and what we shouldn't do. For instance, eating, red meat, eating bush meat, maybe that is not properly cooked. Those kind of information should be given to the public. I know that frequent washing of hands is something that we've been practicing ever since COVID-19 came on board. But there are other things that we need to also do. We need to, sensitize the public. We need to go to the remote areas and then carry out what we call stakeholders engagement. And then we use the traditional means and also social media to ensure that people are aware that something like this is happening somewhere. And when you look at the proximity, Guinea and Congo is not too far away from this place. So I think risk communication is very important at this point. And then we need to also beef up security around our different borders to really safeguard such this thing happening. That's what I would advise the country at this point.
Right, so more isolation centers, more facilities, more personnel, more trainings, basically equals more funding. And I'm sure you appreciate that. So this motion, does it factor in that? Because, I mean, as we have rightly said, we're faced with COVID-19 and trying to, improve capacity to handle that. So how does the motion tackle that area of more funding? Because, I mean, that's like the most vital topic in this one.
Well, for us at the National Assembly, I think we have been very supportive ever since the outbreak of COVID-19, occurred in terms of the budget provision for health sector. So you can see that there has been tremendous improvement compared to the past. At the moment, the country budget for health is about 7% compared to what has been happening in the previous year. So that is, part of the support that we are giving, at the level of National Assembly. And we are also willing, to support the more in terms of funding if the current resources they have, is not adequate. They can always beckon on this thing. National Assembly to see how we can support the move. Because I know that all this one that we are saying now, all the measures that we are stipulating, there is no way we can actually handle, this issue without funding. Funding is very paramount at this point. But for now, I'm not sure there should really be issue with funding based on the current 2021 budget provision that we have made for health institution. But going forward, if there is a challenge in that area, I think the National Assembly will be willing and then will be ready to support the health sector the more. Let me just take you back to what the Speaker of the House of Representatives has been doing in the recent time. I don't know if you've been following the activities of the House when it comes to health sector. He has been having engagement, stakeholders engagement with all the almost all the health workers in the country, trying to see how their welfare, packages can be, improved so that they can give us the best. I think that engagement is still on. It's ongoing. So we are ready and willing to support the health sector the more.
Right. So, Honorable Idem, there's the content of the motion and there is the motion itself. And that brings us to the question about just how effective, how binding, how much of an importance really does the federal government attach to motions? Because we've seen motions in the past calling for this and that, and they just went and we didn't see anything. So really, just how binding should this motion be, or how binding is it?
Well, I would say that every motion that emanates from the House, it's a law that must be respected by all arms of government. And I would like to commend the federal government, for their sensitivity to the resolution from National Assembly. Let me just give you an instance. I remember some months ago when I took up a motion on Federal Character Commission. When we came on board, the 9th Assembly, I discovered that Federal Character Commission was not properly set up. It was only one commission that was, on that board as at that time. So we passed a similar resolution that was passed yesterday, and then directing federal government to ensure that adequate numbers of commissioners were appointed. And then within 30 days, the federal government hearkened to that motion. So that is how far motions, have played important role as far as the administration or governance of this country is concerned. So I want to believe that this particular one is going to follow suit, because this one has to do with, human lives. We shouldn't play, politics with human lives. So with this motion of yesterday, we are expecting that federal government, through its relevant agency, especially Ministry of Health, will not just allow the motion to go, unattended to. I want to believe that they will look into it as soon as the resolution itself gets to National Assembly. It is my belief that these measures that we stipulated, in the motion, that are going to, put them in place so that we don't have reason to experience another outbreak. We don't have reason to experience another pandemic. It's not good for the lives of the people that we are representing. It's not even good for our economy. So I think they will respect the motion.
Honorable, motions are, usually supposed to be well-intended. Good to see that the authorities hearken to the motions when they come up, but we get that point. But we also do know that there have been several motions that were not heeded by the authorities. Only recent history. Remember that the National Assembly themselves, about confirmation of EFCC chairman, for instance, the former one. But we also do know, it's been said several times, motions are advisory. They don't have force of law. Isn't that the case?
Well, I would say that it depends on the content of the motion and how urgent
resolutions.
The motion is.
Resolutions, actually.
Okay, resolution.
Yeah.
Okay, it still boils down to what I said earlier. It depends on the nature of the resolution. It depends on the content. Like the one of yesterday, it was a matter of urgent public importance. It was a resolution that should not really, delay. It shouldn't take much time before the implementation. It is an urgent matter that's supposed to be looked into. So it depends on the content. I want to believe that when resolution from the House, is such that if something is not done immediately, that is going to affect the lives of the people. Federal government don't really waste time when it comes to implementation. But if they know that some resolutions are such that they can stay, pending when they just appraise it and see the benefits or the important. I think those are the ones that normally take some time. But for the type of that yesterday, I'm not sure it's going to take time because it has to do with the lives of the people that we are representing. And also remember that one of the primary responsibilities of government is to protect life, of its citizenry. So I don't see what will be, the benefit of the people that we are governing if such motion that is so sensitive because it has to do with the lives, will be kept under the carpet. I don't see why the people should really appreciate us being there to represent them.
So I'd like us to touch on the era we're in now, which is the era of COVID vaccines. So we just took delivery of the first tranche just a few days ago, and interestingly, 2.3 million Nigerians registered in the first 24 hours. And listening to the head of MPHCDA talking about strategic leaders, how they would, go out to get these vaccines, and the role they will play also in informing their constituencies about how to, receive this vaccine hesitancy, which we have seen over time. But for you have spoken about Ebola, which you also referenced COVID-19. Are you part of those strategic leaders who will be, taking the vaccines? And just what kind of information are you giving your constituents about this vaccine?
Well, I think the vaccine just arrived the country a few days ago. And then we are still studying the situation. And then we have, health committee in the National Assembly. So at the appropriate time, we are going to sit back and then look at measures that we can use to ensure that people are well sensitized. So for now, I will reserve my comment on that because we have not really done, anything about it. We are just studying, the situation to know, what is next after the receipt of the first batch of the vaccine. So let me not really comment on that. Let us just wait to be advised by our health committee in the House before we can now know the next line of action.
Deputy Chairman, House Committee on Communications, thank you for your perspective this morning.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, Tabli.
All right. Well, back in a moment. Don't go away.
Indeed, that's who we have with us joining us about now in the studio. Reverend Laddie Thompson is a strategic security researcher in our studios in Abuja. Reverend, thank you so much for coming to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Pleasure is mine.
Well, I know that the situation must really bother you, especially since you have spoken about this way before now, talking about what was confronting us. I know that I've had cause more than one occasion to look at past videos of your appearances with us. And you have said that what is confronting us is a monster which will require us to bandy together. But it would seem that they will keep tugging at the lines which divide us. Now, we're seeing different meetings. We've seen that by the Northern Governors Forum. Now we're seeing that by Northwest Governors Forum. Northeast Governors Forum. I don't know if Northwest Governors are going to hold theirs as well. Southwest, Southeast. What should we really be saying if we are to confront the monster of insecurity that currently faces us as a people?
Well, like we've been saying consistently for more than 15 years to 20 years now, this is a hydra. This is something that requires a holistic approach. This is something that has to be diagnosed properly before making any move at all to cure it. Now, Nigeria has been enthusiastically trying its best, We pointed out to us again and again that the kinetics, the military aspect, maximum is 37%. So right now where we are at now is that we're at a stage where it is a war of narratives. There's a war of narratives going on. And we're not necessarily winning that war of narratives. Because you see, when soldiers begin to desert, when all sorts of things are happening in different places, it means that different concepts are being fed into the minds of people. So I believe that the point at which we are right now, if we really want our nation to survive, we must thank the government and applaud those who have supplied the kinetics, 37%. But we have to emphasize right now that, look, leave the kinetics alone and let us now face the war of narratives.
Well, you said that the problem has to be diagnosed properly. I think that is, we're still at the heart of that. Have we been able to diagnose what this problem is properly? Do we really know what is attacking us? Because in one breath, say it's herdsmen. No, it's not herdsmen. No, they're militants. No, they're not militants. Oh, no, they're disgruntled people. No, they're not disgruntled people. Oh, no, it's about politics of 2023. What precisely is the problem that is confronting us as a people?
Well, a statesman in 1966 said something. He said that the joys, the progress of Nigeria is indivisible. So also are our adversities as well. They are indivisible. Now, the truth is, what is confronting us is a global problem with a national face. So we should at no time be just concentrating on what is happening in Zamfara, is happening in Niger, what is happening in Ogun State, or what is happening in Edo State, or what's happening in Benue. We need to sit down and take a panoramic view of the whole thing, and then come to the point where we agree that we are up against something that's extremely intelligent, one. Number two, something has studied us as a people. It studied our history, it studied all our cleavages, it studied all our fault lines, and it is exploiting all those things one by one. Now, if we look at things very well, you find out that, look at the media, for instance, and listen to what has been reported by many statespersons and different people over the past 10, 15 years. You'll find out that a lot of people initially got deceived by one storyline or the other. Somewhere along the way, they readjust, but there's still a lot of confusion out there. And unless we do this on time, let me say this. One of the reasons why you see me, consistently over 15, almost 20 years talking about this is because I know how lethal it is. I know how dangerous this thing is. It's going to cost us a lot in the long run if we don't sit down, build up the coalition bipartisan that we need across all political divides. If we don't bring in the entire nation to come and stand as one to resist it, I'm not sure we're going to win at the end of the day.
What is the it?
Now, I keep pointing out to us that this is a global problem. It's a global problem that has been diagnosed in many nations of the world. It wears a religious cover, but it is not religious. It is supremacist. It is seeking to dominate, subjugate. And of course, you know that, like Nazi Germany, anything that is supremacist is doing it because it has a lot of gains by the time it, succeeds finally. Now, some will say, like you pointed out earlier on, 1 minute people are saying, oh, it's an ethnic clash. Then they say, no, it's economic. No, it's financial. No, it's a hydra. It was designed to be a hydra. And if you look at many other researchers and what they've done, you'll find out that this hydra has been with us for a long time. It's only that it was between 1980, 86, it received a huge boost in Nigeria because of the fact that Osama was next door to us in Sudan for 6 years. But even prior to that, there had been a build-up, that was creating cracks into in this nation's fabric, and having all sorts of narratives we've never attended to. So the point now is this: it's a global thing. It wears a local face. It's supremacist. It's a hydra. It will come disguised as religion. And initially, you find out that some of the people who are resisting now were deceived initially. And some of them felt, oh, it's advantageous because in Nigeria we have a religious divide that we inherited based on our colonial legacy. Nobody has ever worked on it. If I remember very well, when the statesman said that the joys, the happiness of Nigeria is indivisible, and so are its adversities, there were two things that statesman said in 1966 we have not attended to. One, he said we should halt the disintegration. So it means there's been a disintegration process that is being taken advantage of. Then he used the word for the second thing, recrudescence, which is the recurring of something that is not pleasant. So what we're seeing playing out in Zamfara, in Niger, in all these places right now, we can't shout Uhuru because we've just returned one set of girls. We need a policy that is national. We need to make sure we build up an answer that is convincing enough to make Nigerians be ready to stand for Nigeria. And I say that, of course, again, piggyback on the news that there are some soldiers who are, deserting. Now, that's a serious thing. Because if you realize that you are up against something very intelligent, it knows how much personnel we have in all our armed forces put together. Dividing the army, splitting up our people, look, bringing in narratives of all sorts is part of what it does. It uses force multipliers. And honestly, in fact, let me just put it like this straight away. I think we need to have a declaration of war, but remember, it's a new kind of war. Because if we declare officially that Nigeria is at war, the attitudes of all Nigerians will change. We may then be able to get the kind of cooperation that we need from across the entire country. We are transiting from the third stage to the fourth and final stage of how this thing works.
If we say, if you hear, because you have talked about how this is now, the battle we need to win now is a war of narratives.
Narratives, yes.
Now, you have also said in the beginning, you said in the beginning that let us commend those who have supplied the 37% kinetics that we need in this war. But some people will say that government is also largely saddled with the task of providing perspective. Have we heard from those we ought to hear from those who have been elected into office, from those who ought to have a panoramic view of what is going on, and perhaps tasked with the duty of explaining it to Nigerians so that we all can be on the same page? Have we heard enough from them? Have we even heard from them at all?
No, let's put it like this. You see, sometimes when you see what is coming ahead, there are positions you adopt that some people wonder, why do you adopt these positions? Now, these are positions I adopt. There's something called tragic optimism. The position of tragic optimism is a well-known concept across the world. It's the fact that you hope for the best and prepare for the worst. Okay? Now, when you say that, we need to, first of all, at least encourage those who have supplied something. Look at the young soldiers who are dying. The sacrifices they're making is no joke. We need to be able to commend them for being able to get up every morning and go out to defend the sovereignty of the nation. Now, for the people who are in diverse positions, I've said this again and again, I believe that we're on a learning curve. Now, I'm going to say something to you that we need to be very careful of. And there's the fact that when the people become traumatized and terrorized, people are going to lose patience with governance. If we're not careful, people are going to get jittery. Already, there are so many people saying so many things in many different directions that don't have any root in reality. And that's why you see that it behoves on leadership. And when I'm talking about leadership, not only the state now, also non-state actors as well, who know what is ahead if we don't get it right. For us to encourage government for what it is doing, while we also give them an elbow in areas where they should be doing more. But what is most important of all is to get everybody to realize that we are dealing with an existential threat. There may be no Nigeria anymore if we continue to let this thing move ahead of us. It is sophisticated. That's why if you don't see me pointing fingers, because even the health sector of Nigeria, education sector of Nigeria, the degree of sophistication we have right now is nothing that we are going to write home about. So if we look at something that comes against an entire nation with the kind of sophistication that it has in hand, I'm going to tell you that this position of tragic optimism is about the best way to get everybody on board as much as we can while we can.
So the question that is, bothering my mind is whether we have that sense of urgency from the leadership. If you say that the threat confronting us is existential, and you're not the first person to say that. A number of people have also pointed that out, that what we're actually looking at is deadly for us as a people. However, we're not getting that sense of urgency from those from whom we should be getting it. Or do you feel otherwise?
Well, again, you'll understand that my very clinical position, I'm very clinical about these things. I say this because right from the beginning, I'd first mentioned that when it comes to the Nigerian military, that the Nigerian military was going to be on a learning curve. I started saying that 15 years ago. And of a truth, you agree with me that no amount of training in Nigerian military prepared them for asymmetrical warfare and hybrid threats. Nothing prepared them for force multipliers. The textbooks on warfare, this modern warfare, are just being written right now. And so all I urge us to do is that, look, the military needs to upgrade. For instance, the traditional chain of command never works against this kind of asymmetrical warfare. They're going to have to deconstruct interagency cooperations and things like that. Not only that, the bipartisanship that I mentioned in leadership, you're going to agree with me that these are not part of the Nigerian narrative normally. So what we're talking about here is that I would rather say that I will talk to good leadership that what we need is exceptional leadership, deliberately. I will say to good leadership that what we need for now is exceptional leadership.
You really have good leadership now?
Well, like I did say to you, tragic optimism, my own position is to talk about good leadership, but demand exceptional leadership. And I'll tell you why I say this. Political leadership is one thing. If you look at de facto leadership in Nigeria, it really goes beyond the political. And you're going to find out again that there's a whole lot of leadership in Nigeria that is not taking responsibility. Now, the point is that if we feel that the government is yet to handle these things with the kind of attention that we want the government to handle it, there's also, the onus may now be on non-state actors who are in leadership as well, to find a wisdom to compel governance. Look, our young children are dying on a daily basis. People are being traumatized. So this thing is not table talk. It's not something for consultants to just jojo about and talk about. This is existential. It's affecting people. Trauma that we don't even have what it takes to handle. So at the end of the day, you find out that we have to maintain this wisdom and keep pushing and pray that it doesn't get to the point that it is too late before political leadership wakes up to the fact that this is an existential threat. We don't want it to get to be too late before religious leadership finds out that it has a role to play. And if the government is not allowing religious leadership to play a role, religious leadership needs to come and talk to media leadership and say, media leadership, I can tell you something. When the soft targets are over, you know who's going to be next in line? I don't need to say, but you are going to find out that a lot of media houses, especially the efficient ones, are going to have to be shut down, or they're going to be broadcasting from locations that nobody knows. Because once we pass this phase, we're entering the fourth phase. Once we enter the first phase, it's no longer soft targets. They're not going to be kidnapping school children and all that anymore. No, they're going to be going after institutions, shutting down institutions to cripple the country from within. And that's why I'm saying to us that politicians whose eyes are fixed on 2023 need to be educated that if we enter the fourth and final phase of this thing and we are transiting already from the third phase, we should stop thinking about 2023. There may be no such elections because, look, for instance, there was an attempt to hijack the solution. I'm a witness that if not for a lot of research and a lot of stuff, if we had allowed the intelligence behind this thing to hijack the so-called solution, Nigeria would have breathed for 2 months, and then afterwards we will have found out that we have jumped from the frying pan into the fire. Now that that has been thwarted to some degree.
Hijack the solution. Can you shed a little more light on that?
Well, what I'm saying now is that since officially governance was slow to realize that there's a religious cover to this, and that religious cover has to be blown so that we can unite the nation. Different clerics began to come forward to present themselves. And of course, amongst them, if we have the kind of intelligence of what we're up against, they had enough intelligence to present us with solutions that would have worsened the case for us. So it behoves people like myself, people who are ahead of me in leadership in the religious communities, for us to join hands together across all divides and then begin to propose people and mention names like that of people like Dahiru, the famous Sheikh, Dahiru Bauchi, as the kind of person we would like to see working with government to find a solution to these issues. Somebody who we know that can, engage in dialogue, dissidents, kidnappers, and people like that, without losing sight. Now, we kill two birds with one stone. Although he's quite old now, but I know he has a lot of disciples beside him. I'm talking about a man like Dahiru Bauchi. Now, if we had a cleric like that, and we brought that kind of cleric into this war, we're now talking about the narratives now. Now, he's an Islamic scholar. He's an Islamic scholar who has always stood against violence. At least a few of my friends in northern Nigeria, I'm not a Muslim, but I can trust the judgment of at least a few number of people I know who have spoken so well of Sheikh Dahiru Bauchi. He, for instance, we know definitely all through the years when there was one fiery cleric in those days who said over his dead body, will there be a Christian president in Nigeria? This Dahiru Bauchi stood up against him and used Islamic scriptures to prove that this kind of attitude is wrong. Now, a man like that should be pushed to the forefront. Look, for Nigerians to move forward, we still need to talk to some of the older generation also who saw the fault lines being erected, the fault lines that are now being... We don't run away from these things. Nnamdi Azikiwe once said, look, let's forget our differences. And Amadu Bello said, no, let's not forget our differences. Let us, put them into... let's examine our differences. Nobody can hide away from the fact that the war of narrative started long before this Hydra came to exploit it. Don't forget that available online in Nigeria here, there are BBC recordings of the former Premier of Northern Nigeria talking about one of the tribal communities in a disparaging tone. Don't forget that the northernization agenda was based on a narrative. Now, those kind of narratives are not helping anybody. We've gone past all that. I attended Ahmadu Bello University, so nobody can come and tell me and argue with me that Northern Nigeria has any deficit of intelligence. There is more than enough intelligence in Northern Nigeria spread across to match Southern Nigeria to sit down together and forge a better future. Why am I saying this again? Look at the responses that are coming out of fear right now. A lot of people are looking for the future in the past. Everybody wants to go back to the past, forgetting that the enemy who can split you, the enemy who can destabilize your nation, is not going to allow anybody to go back to the past, if that's the hopes that people have. So we are right now at a point where all leadership in all areas, media, religious, business community, I want to say this to the business community, and let me say this on air so that it can be very clear. I've been working on this for 20 years, and I've moved from location to location in this country, and I've watched the economies being destroyed in certain locations in this country as it moved. I've watched wealthy people reduced to paupers. But what is making this country, that makes us keep going on here, is because we have no respect for statistics. We don't have respect for numbers and figures. If we did, and we'd realize what has already happened, how many people have built homes and their homes are devalued, had to abandon their homes or sell them for about 5% of what the homes were worth, then the business community in Nigeria will sit up now and realize that this ill wind that is blowing is going to come and affect even the business community. And then maybe we can now build, everybody will now have enough reason for us to join hands together across all divides. I'm watching what is going on. I've seen one of the governors making certain comments. There's a crossfire between federal government and one of the governors and this and that. Do you know what the truth is? We mustn't allow anybody to descend to those levels. If we love our children, we love the future of our children, we want this nation to continue to exist a few years down the line from now, we have to make sure that people arise who are bigger than all these divides, who can help everybody to wake up and say, look, this is what we are up against. This so-called political divide, there will be no politics if this thing succeeds.
So first and foremost, let me get this straight. Are you saying that the business community seems to be, I don't want to use the word unaware, or they're carrying on as if, there is another world that they're operating in different from the world that we all live in? Is that what you're insinuating?
It's not even just the business community, the entire community. Look, Nigeria was built on principles that makes each person, we were built on divide and rule. So that makes everybody self-centered, sort of. Everybody fights for what they can get. They band up together in aggregates for what each person can get. So if something is happening to your brother somewhere else, and you hear news about it, well, you pay lip service for a while, and then things go on as usual. So you find out that not only the business community, look, let me even talk about the Christian community, my community. When Christians were being slaughtered in northern Nigeria, the southern Christians should have made a lot more, there should have been a greater response from southern Nigeria. Why? Because I kept pointing out to them then that the northern Christians are just a buffer zone. Your turn is coming. And by the time it shifted to the south, we let them know that, look, it's not only Christians, it's going to affect Muslims as well. When it now started affecting Muslims as well, you can see what is now happening. It's a war of narratives. There's so much confusion all over the whole place.
We'll take it from there, especially in terms of what the response of the governors have been. I mean, we saw the report from the Northeast governors. We'll examine some of their responses to what is going on when we come back from this break. Please stay with us. Reverend Laddie Thompson is still with us in the studios, and we're talking about now, we're going to talk about the response of the Northwest governors. You saw that report before when we started the segment with you, when they were talking about state police. There's been all sorts of responses, and I think we brought you on when we had that controversy around Amotekun in the Southwest as well. It looks now that we've been told that central policing efforts are now being obsolete to tackle what it is that we're currently facing. What are your thoughts on what the response of the governors have been so far?
Well, I listened to them all right, but one of the things I wanted to do first of all is to separate the regional response from the issue of state police. The regional structure, when Amotekun and Shege Kafasa emerged and all that, we need to separate that and look at the call for state police.
Shege Kafasa didn't see the light of day. It does somewhat.
They floated it, in theory, even if it never really, it never really was able to find its footing. So the concept is still there somewhere. And anywhere there's a concept alive, it can always revive. Now, for the state police, I'm one of the people who used to be very excited about the issue of state police until I had a conversation with one of the people who I consider to be a mentor in Nigeria, a statesman called Ahmed Joda. The day I sat and listened to Ahmed Joda on how what do they call them in those days, the whatever police that used to be had obtained earlier, the traditional police structure in the earlier years. When they announced the federal police structure, he mentioned to me the joy that came all over Nigeria at that time. And when he now mentioned what the state police had been doing and what they had degenerated into, it now tempered my enthusiasm. I now found out that if we need the state police, there's no two ways about it. However, we're not going to look at the kind of celebrity, the tonality there is more political than security-oriented. Now, if we're going to make the state police work, we're going to have to look into the fine details. We're going to have to do a whole lot of work telling what you can do, what you cannot do, what powers are yours. Look, I remember, it was on channels, we were talking about some of the excesses of the Amotekun, which was, attracting a lot of attention some weeks ago. And I said, listen, anybody should have expected these excesses. Because in listening to the way the things were put together, the degree of articulation was not enough to be able to pin down exactly what this is and what this is not. Because we know that there's really no federal legislation that is really truly supporting regional forces. Now, Nigeria cannot shy away from these things. We need innovative... Look, the best future for our nation will come out of creativity, innovative leadership, and disciplined execution.
I know that the Southwest governors were very categorical in trying to, deny the fact that this Amotekun thing was not a regional thing. I mean, they kept on saying that each state had to make its own laws to support Amotekun. And I think that, especially because the federal government was quite concerned about developing regional outfits.
Yes.
So we saw that denial, very vehemently on the part of Southwest governors. But you maintain that this is regional. Is that not right?
It was all semantics. The point is we have an existential threat.
Yeah.
And regional forces that are integrated into a federal structure would be welcome. What I expected from the federal government was that the federal government was going to help to create guidelines and granulate how regional forces will work and work them together towards one purpose, which is to defend the sovereignty of this country. Now, what has come out of the regional attempts so far is really nothing like what we need right now. We have a shell there. We have some political, some of the governors have gained some political, profit from all that. But if what is coming ahead blows hard tomorrow, the so-called regional outfits on ground right now cannot handle. And let me tell you what the next step is if you really want to know, because once the regional fails, you're going to find out that the last unit, the last stand for Nigeria is when it goes down to the level of families. When you find out that each homestead, each family is going to have to work within a framework of a national policy to defend its members. We don't want it to come to that. So the greater the articulation now for integration towards one purpose, then the better it is. That's why I said we need not just good leadership from the federal government, we need exceptional leadership.
Well, let's take it to my colleagues in Lagos. Chamberlain.
Well, good morning, Robert Thompson. Well, in order to at least help a lot more people understand this, perhaps could you tell us why Nigeria? Why are they targeting this country?
I would have thought that was obvious because even Osama bin Laden in his notes had mentioned the regional importance of Nigeria. 1 in every 6 African, black, all over the world is Nigerian. Nigeria has a clout that is amazing. And the truth is this, if Nigeria goes, West Africa is gone. If West Africa goes, Africa is gone. It's a specter that is better left unimagined.
But the people part of this solution now, because, when you talk about religion, you know how deep and people connect with that. How easy or difficult is it? What needs to be done to ensure that people themselves also get to that level of awareness so that we can begin to perhaps, if we could engender some sort of national action from the people perspective?
Okay, you mentioned religion and then you mentioned the mobilization of people. Now, in this whole thing, those are 2 different aspects altogether. Now, for the religious aspect of it, the first thing we need to realize is that we can create a common platform by looking at God in his office as creator, you're going to find out that it doesn't matter whether you're a Muslim or you're a Christian, you're a Hindu, or whatever you are, everybody agrees that God is creator. Of course, with the exception of a few, interesting folk. So on the grounds of the fact that God is creator, I'll give you a good example. In 1776, America was able to heal its wounds and its trauma because it brought in God on the level of creator. And that's why you find out that the Declaration of Independence says we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. Now, if you go to a speech that was made by Tafawa Balewa on the 7th of October in 1960 at the UN, United Nations Assembly, you'll find out that in his last paragraph of his speech, he spoke about the troubles we're having today. And one of the things he mentioned that Tafawa Balewa mentioned then was that there are what he didn't call them inalienable truths, self-evident truths. He called them eternal truths. He called them eternal truths. So if we go back and research what Sir Tafawa Balewa, what he mentioned, you find out that for the religious aspect, eternal truths, there's value to the life of every person. The state has to know that, and every religion knows that, and we start building on that basis. Now, when it comes to the mobilization of our people, you must realize that this is why we say it's a war of narratives. Look, the onus is on the federal government right now to create a national narrative that never existed before. What am I saying? A national identity that is so profitable that every other identity will pale into insignificance. Don't forget that every human being responds based on pleasure, pain. So if you create a national identity that has advantages, that has perks and promises, and actually just actualize some, because all you need to do is to sell a dream. Don't forget that the anticipation of pleasure is more powerful than pleasure, and the anticipation of pain is actually a lot more lethal than even the pain itself. So a wise use of this at the federal government level creates a new Nigerian narrative, a new Nigerian deal that is capable of doing what the liberators, Ahmadu Bello, Bafemi Awolowo, Zik and Co, what they could not do because of the exigencies of their day can be done now, and we have all the reason to do it now. Listen, Christians are being killed, Muslims are being killed, Nigerians are being slaughtered, and they're using this war of narratives to still keep us separated instead of us bonding together to face a common enemy. And that's why I mentioned people like Sheikh Dahiru Bauchi and some other individuals too, that if we look around in this country, there are people that the government can reach out to help to build consensus, mold opinion, so the whole of Nigeria is fighting for the future of Nigeria.
Well, Reverend Thompson, perhaps there's a bridge between the religious elements that you talked about and the people Justice Chamberlain asked the other time, because you have also talked about the need for us to engage some religious leaders, such as you have mentioned, and a few others like that. You may want to speak to that later. But talking about crime, criminality, insecurity generally, all crime is local. And it is the same localities that produce the leaders that rise to national leadership. Now, you have also talked about something that's been an advocacy over time, over the past 2 years at least, on this program, that is a national ethos, which you call a national dream. Reference the national anthem, the very first national anthem we had. Though tribes and tongue may differ, in brotherhood we stand. So what is it that you would say should be contents of that national ethos that will grow from the locality to the national level, where the political leaders themselves occupy spaces? Because it will seem like there is a huge gap between the political class up there at the national and state levels and the localities from where they come.
Good. You have mentioned about three things, and I think we need to separate them if we're really going to do justice. But first of all, to answer those three things, we need to come to the position where we agree that success is a result and failure is a result. And the point is that there's a construct behind success and there's a construct behind failure. So let's first of all go to the first issue that you raised. Now, you are talking about crime being local, but if the intelligence behind the crime is global, if you attempt to deal with it with the way you have handled the local issue, you are going to fall flat on your face at the end of the day. And I know where this is coming from. I'm going to tell you something that happened to me some years ago. Justin Welby, who was elevated to become, I think, the Archbishop of Canterbury or something, or London. I remember talking to him at one meeting and asking a few questions. When there was a terrorist attack in the UK, that was 7/7 now, immediately I heard how Tony Blair, how he handled the issue. Some years later, the same Tony Blair came to Nigeria and he was addressing our own terrorist issues, and he was trying to allude that it was poverty that was the greatest factor behind it, and all sorts of things that come out of textbooks that are crafted for African policy. So at this point in time, if Nigeria is going to be the leading nation of Africa, we really have to wake up right now to realize that a lot of funding is coming from all over the world to support narratives here right now that will not help us. So the point is this. Number two, if we move away from that, let's get to the fact that if you give a Nigerian advantages that actually protect him, you see what happens to Nigerians abroad? You see what happens to other people? The value of human worth. Now, let's not talk semantics about singing a national anthem. You can sing a national anthem from here to Timbuktu. If it doesn't have a construct behind it, I'll give you something that's funny that happened to one of my relatives. At that time, the children were very young, and one of my relatives was traveling, and they got to an airport, and they said, look, all Americans to this side, all other nationalities to another end. And people were like, why? They said, well, all Americans are entitled to a hotel room because the stopover is so long, and America does not allow you to keep its citizens sleeping in the airport. So this relative of mine was carrying a baby that was American. And she asked the question and says, does it apply to the baby? To say, as long as the baby has an American passport, it applies to the baby. Now, it became clear that you can't take the American baby without the Nigerian mother. So the Nigerian passport could not get the kind of protection and, the perks that the child's passport could get. So these things are constructs. We have to sit down and put together constructs, low-hanging fruit. And the truth is this, once people believe it and we start to execute it, honestly, it will take on a life of its own. So these things are not rocket science. And the point is this, except we get down and knuckle down to these things now, we have a window frame in which I will not even be around to come and grant interviews anymore. I won't be around to run around to try and counsel people and try and give consultancy services anymore, because any wise man knows that if we allow certain things to fester to a point and only come to realize when it's almost too late, what's the point in talking then? But for now, there's still a window to build up that bipartisanship, to build up the value of human worth. Let me say something to you, whether it's the political space, whether it's the federal government right now in its leadership, or whatever it is, we have more than enough of what it takes to make Nigeria that number one nation in Africa and make it a leading nation, in the world. But the will to do it, the understanding to do it, the attention to detail are things that we have to forge. And I can tell you something, when we enter the next phase, if there's still a window of time, nobody will need to persuade anybody anymore.
So, we've largely talked about, the sickness, trying to diagnose what exactly is wrong. You've talked about the solutions, the medicine. But, for people, they see, they might not be that vested to try to look beyond the symptoms, such as kidnappings, the attacks they see on a daily basis. For them, once those symptoms stop, they feel that at least we're getting a handle on this problem. Now, you have listened to the president, the latest, which was given by his aide, saying that security operatives should shoot those with AK-47 on sight. You've also listened to governors and the statements they have made. We just recovered from the recent kidnapping in Jangebe. 279 schoolgirls were kidnapped. And the question people keep asking is, when will the next kidnap be? When will my village be attacked next? Because a lot of people in those areas aren't sleeping, as it were. So while we're diagnosing the sickness, trying to find, the solution for it, these symptoms are there. So are we doing enough, really, from what you have seen to ensure that those symptoms, which people see on a daily basis, at least stop with what you have heard the president say, what you've heard the governors say as well?
Again, we're going back to reinventing the wheel, so to speak. What you have spoken again, and the emphasis in what you have raised again, is the emphasis that we are laying on kinetics, on guns and this and that. Now, the question you need to ask yourself is this, is that, okay, the girls are back, but somebody is winning the war of propaganda. Somebody is winning the war of narratives. Everybody in Nigeria knows that something is coming up soon. They don't know when, they don't know where, but they know that soft targets are available. Now, what I'm trying to point out to you right now is that we don't need, this is not rocket science, all hands on deck. What am I trying to point out? The fact is this, we need to right now show that the value of the life of the female child in northern Nigeria is extremely high. We need to show now that, look, you kidnap one Nigeria, and it translates into pain for the whole of Nigeria. And let me tell you what I'm trying to point out to you is that when the war of narratives is right, you're going to find out again that there will be some people who will come up with the narratives that point out to the terror mongers that the truth is this, Nigerians are no longer being terrorized. In fact, Enai Komu, I remember, made a comment, a friend of mine who's a security consultant. He said that we need to begin to harden Nigerians now. Nigerians shouldn't panic anymore. Because the point is, if you kidnap girls, we pay you a ransom, you take the ransom, you buy more ammunition, and you come back and kidnap more. And then it's a spiral into what? Now, if we look at it just on an individual basis without any policy, out of emotional pressures, we'll pay up every time, we'll quickly succumb to all the threats and all that. But when a nation says, wait a minute, you are trying to destroy this nation, one Nigerian is extremely important. And this is the point. There are some Nigerians saying, if you kidnap me, nobody should pay any ransom. Pay ransom for what? Nigeria has been good to me. Nigeria has built me up. Nigeria has helped me. And if you pay a ransom, they release me, and then they come back, use that money, and then go and kill other people based on that again, it's not going to work. On the contrary, let me tell you what you concluded on that we need to look at in that thing. Because I remember the governors, there was a question that was being posed by reporters when one of the governors was being interviewed. And they were saying that, okay, these are kidnappers who did this. Where were they from? Were they Fulani? Were they Hausa? Were they this? Were they that? Listen, the time has come when we need to be very clinical about these issues and stop speaking in innuendos. We need to look back into history, trace if there are any supremacist things that are being taken advantage of. For instance, if you ask me, I think the first set of people we need to take pressure off is the Fulani. I ask myself, Ladi, how do we take pressure off the Fulani? I'd like us to go back to 1821 when Ajayi Crowther was kidnapped by Fulani people. The track record is there. If you come into our church archives, we have records for you from the Nupechi people. How when certain two brothers, not Dasaba, in ancient times, two Fulani brothers, the slave raiding and all that. So does a supremacist narrative exist in their enculturation program? Yes. Is it modern? No. Is it ancient? Yes. Now the point is, who is it that has gone to stir up that ancient narrative and is breathing life into it today? If we locate the person, we grew up looking at Fulani milkmaids as a very friendly picture. Some people with intelligence somewhere, knowing that Nigeria is not into details, went and dug up that narrative, funded it, expanded it, and all of us are panicking. You see a Fulani man today, and then you are panicking. That's not the way we should go about it. We need to go back into the narratives, locate the people who went to dig up and exhume the ancient narrative and who funded it to make it what it is today.
You're talking about taking off pressure from them. How does the country do that?
Well, the point is this. The Fulani man too, who knows that this is not what he represents, now has the opportunity to speak up and say, look, yes, in ancient times, this is X, Y, and Z. We have medical doctors. We have this. I know this because my last visit, one of my visits to Gidangoma, I think the Ardo was not around, but the second in command, I can't remember, there's a title they have for the second in command. While I was talking to those people, they called me aside. This was in southern Kaduna. And they called me aside and said, look, there's this precious metal here. The older people are interested in asking me, can this place be like Dubai? They're not stupid. But you see, some of them called me aside and said, it's the younger people who are more impressionable. So the people coming out from the fields who are coming to come and persuade them are coming with a narrative that excites the young, gives the young a vision, gives the young something to look up to. But if we are clinical about this thing, then we now empower the more wise ones and the sections of the Fulani who say, look, let me even bring it to you like this. Please, let's stop all this rubbish about somebody bringing AK-47 rifles and arming the Fulani. There's logistics behind it. Who is the person doing that? Will they have been going around on rampaging, even the ones coming into the country? Will they have been doing this? Let's not forget that there was a time when we had, what do they call these people now? Palm Wine Tappers Association in southern Nigeria. They've become anachronisms by economic factors. They became anachronisms. Now, it's the same thing with all this talk. In fact, I'm ashamed at times to the level of thought, the kind of discussions we're having in Nigeria. Let's look back to 1956 when the Western Nigerian Livestock Company was put together. Let us remember that that same company was actually initiated 10 years earlier by the British. Let us remember that under Chief Akideko in Western Nigeria then, we had this Ndama breed that they went to bring from Mali because they said the weight of the cattle per hoof was 500 kg compared to the 250 to 200 kg of that of the average Fulani person. At that time, they set up what they called the Fashola Breeding Center, which was in Ilora then. And then what they did was that they began to breed and they opened up about 9-12 ranches. It was a commercial venture. Why is somebody talking about bicycle repairers, talking about palm wine tappers, and then talking about, this Fulani is this, is that? No. The reality is that if we take care of the details, a lot of people, look, how many Fulani people, I went to school with Fulani people. Well educated.
Reverend, we can go on and on and on, and we still might not get to the bottom of this. I know that security is an ongoing conversation, something that will continue to agitate our minds until we find a solution, until we hear, according to my colleague, let's see less and less of the symptoms, because it is the symptoms that make all of us very concerned and, continue to get us agitated. But we have to thank you for shedding light on some of the areas that we should be paying attention to. Reverend Ladin Thompson is a strategic security researcher and has been speaking to us here in our Abuja studio. Thank you once again for coming on.
Pleasure is always mine.
Well, we'll take some of your mails now in your messages. This is from Don Seggs, who's talking about national security. He says, listening to Mr. Ladin Thompson breaking out the challenges of this nation and propose solutions is both heart-lifting and worrisome. Nigeria has been in a state of flux for decades. Just one wrong move and it's a total collapse. We continue to watch and pray.
Well, Dare says, as a nation, we have long dwelt on the path of division rather than coming together to collectively fight the common enemy. The issue of insecurity continues to spread all across Nigerian states, which we dwell on unnecessary grounds such as primordial sentiments.
We'll take a look at this one from Henry. Henry, of course, talking about Nigeria's health system, national biosecurity should be integrated into the health system. Response to any specific threat shouldn't be isolated. Integrated care right from PHC to super tertiary levels should be strengthened. Our hospitals are not working, he says. Let's make them work.
And this one from Dr. Huwavi, also about the health sector. Developing Nigeria's healthcare sector should be a continuous one. Our approach to engaging the healthcare sector only in times of emergency is unhelpful.
And looking at this last one now from Conscience, it says, it's not that the Southwest doesn't engage in agriculture, but herdsmen destroy their farms, rape and kill the farmers. How do we get food sufficiency in that circumstance? So this insecurity has to be tackled sincerely, first by the governors to achieve results. Well, we thank you for your mails and comments to the show this morning. Thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate your time with us. I'm Malko Yusuf.
I'm Kayode Okikiolu.
I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a good day.
I'm Chamberlain Oso. See you next time.